The Offering. Directed by Oliver Park, The Offering is an old-school horror film about how a Jewish family dealt with a child-stealing demon. Although the jump scares are overused in the film, it's entertaining to watch. The female demon Abazu, also known as the child taker, has been part of ancient culture and depicted in various art forms. In Near Eastern and European myths and folklore, Abazu was blamed for miscarriages and infertility. It is said that she was driven by envy since she was infertile. In The Offering, Abazu is called back to the mortal world, and she is determined to take what she wants. An old man performs a ritual by sacrificing a chicken and scattering hastily pressed ash in a circle. His ailing wife appears at the door and tells him to stop, to which he replies, "Burn in hell." He begins to read from a book, and the letters begin to bleed. Then a girl whispers his name, Yasil, and asks him if he wants to see his wife again, to which he replies in the negative. He steps out of the circle, gulping down dark smoke as his skara turns black. He then stabs himself with a knife. The demon tries to remove the amulet around his neck in vain. Arthur and his pregnant wife come to Brooklyn to visit his father, who runs a Jewish funeral home in a Hasidic community. He and his father, Saul, grew apart after marrying Claire, a non-Jewish British journalist. Saul welcomes Arthur and Claire, wanting to establish a relationship with both of them. Arthur volunteers to help his father with a new suicide body that has come in, that of Yasil. The funeral home is the basement of his house. The body is brought in by Hamish, who has apparently worked with Saul for a long time and seems to know Arthur very well. When Hamish is left alone with Arthur, he quietly tells him that he smells like pork. Arthur responds by asking if he's going to question his diet now, but Hamish clarifies that he doesn't talk about food. It's obvious that there's a lot of friction between the two, and that Hamish doesn't trust Arthur. Saul leaves for a moment with Hamish, and Arthur is left alone with the body. While Saul and Hamish talk, Arthur prepares Yasil's body. Arthur was surprised when he noticed the dagger thrust into Yasil's chest. He pulled it out and removed his clothes. He found a strange blue stone tied to a string that had hung around his neck. As he examined the amulet, he dropped it from his hand, and it shattered into pieces. Then Arthur, in an inexplicable act, pushed the amulet into the drain, so his father didn't find out what had happened. But maybe it wasn't easier to pick up the amulet and put it with his other belongings. It broke, but it was an accident. Saul looked at the dagger, and when he analyzed the writings engraved on it, he realized it was no ordinary one. He asked Arthur to leave while he searched through Yasil's possessions. From the moment Arthur left the chamber, he could hear strange demonic whispers through the halls. The whispers quickly turned into unbearably loud, high-pitched noises. Arthur somehow managed to go to sleep even after the strange occurrence. Claire felt someone enter her room, but no one was there when she looked around. As she turned off the lights by the washer, someone turned them on. Suddenly, she came face to face with Yasil, who tried to tear her baby from her body. Panic roused her from sleep, and she was relieved to realize it was only a dream. But the mirror's reflection showed a red bloodstain on the sheet, indicative of how the baby's life was in danger. Saul contacted Charem after examining the writing on the knife, who explained that the hidden name of God was written backward in scripture to summon demons and then seal them to a body. He also asked Saul if he had found an amulet on the body preserving a sanctified letter. He replied in the negative as he was unaware of the pendant because his son's cunning prevented it. Charem clarified that a body without a pendant meant it was not sealed, and therefore, there was no possibility of a demon inhabiting the body. The demon was of limited power when contained in a body, and all it could do was play with the minds of those around it. Unless the body was burned, there could not be much danger. After Karam's confirmation, Saul requested that the body be buried. Meanwhile, Arthur and Hamish go to pick up another body. It's Sarah Scandal, a missing girl from the community. Hamish picks up Arthur's phone in the car and discovers Arthur's money problems and his intention to ask his father to mortgage their house. Hamish exposes Arthur to Saul and Claire. When Claire confronts Arthur, he opens up about his loss of faith after his mother's death. Claire is furious because Arthur practically forced her to quit her job 2 years ago and also got her pregnant even though he knew she was in financial trouble. But despite all this, Arthur kept saying he'd fix it. Honestly, they're catching an atheist out here when he says he doesn't believe in God, but they live off hope, not faith. Artur apologized for the situation. He wanted to leave the house, but Claire encouraged him to stay and apologize to his father. Artur mustered the courage to speak to his father, but he couldn't enter the room, knowing how badly he had broken his Artur. Saul could sense someone in the room, but when he looked around, hoping to find Artur, no one was there. The lights began to flicker, and suddenly he was confronted by a demon. The demon took his soul, and Saul was found dead the next morning. Artur was saddened by the loss of his father. He regretted not speaking to him the night before. He never had the chance to express his affection. It was said that Saul died as a result of a Artur attack, and Hamish blamed Artur for his father's fate. He handed over the documents for the house, signed by his father. Before he died, Saul signed the papers to save Artur from ruin. During the funeral, Claire began seeing and hearing spirits around her. She noticed the little girl, Sarah, in the crowd as she cried out to Claire for help. Sarah had disappeared, and her body was discovered after days of searching. No one knew what had happened to her, but the demon scars were left behind. Claire panicked and reached out to Artur for comfort, but he became lost in his own world. He could also hear whispers and screams. Sometimes, he was in a trance-like state where his body did what the spirits asked. He woke up in the middle of the night and drew a sigil on the ground. He began to believe he was losing his mind. After Saul's death, Artur took on the responsibility of taking care of his business. He called the men to bury Yisil's body, but they wanted a police report before doing so. Since Artur chose to distance himself from Hamish, he had to find a way to deal with the issue alone. He could either transfer custody to next of kin or obtain a police clearance. Artur visited Yisil's home to find her family contacts. Her house was covered in spiritual motifs and books. He found an audio recording of Yisil describing the demon as a shapeshifter and a trickster and how he fell into the trap of the ancient predator. Artur recognized the sigil on the floor. It was the same one he had dreamed of drawing the night before. Beneath the floorboards, Yisil had kept a video recording hidden titled "The Miracle of Sarah Scandal." In the video, Yisil proudly revealed that he had conjured the Archangel of Life, Arturiel. He performed a ritual to bring his wife back from heaven with the Archangel's help. Sarah Scandal was with Yisil in the video. He had brought her to his home to perform the ritual. He believed the Archangel was with them in the room, and with Sarah's prayers, his wife, Ida, would be returned to him from heaven. But instead, he had conjured Abazu, and she took Sarah's life as an offering. Meanwhile, Claire receives a visit from Yisil's wife. But if Artur had done things right, like a businessman, he wouldn't have had to raid a dead man's house, and his wife wouldn't have been fooled by the creature she received at the door. But it was clear that Artur doesn't know how to do things, and because of a trivial matter, he complicates the lives of everyone around him. Then someone claiming to be Ida knocked on the door and demanded to see her husband's body. Claire tried to contact Artur, but the phone connection was unstable. The woman at the door demanded to see the body even though Claire told her she didn't have the authority to let her do that. In the end, she had no choice but to take Ida to her husband's body. But Ida did not want to open the tray of the container where her alleged husband was, so she asked Claire for another favor once again. Claire said that there was no way she would open it, that Ida had to do it, but Ida cunningly told her that due to arthritis problems she could not do it, and once again Claire fell prey to the deception. Seeing Yisil's face, Claire was shocked. It was the same man who tried to take her baby away in her dream. Ida told of the dream and asked Claire to burn the amulet. Claire was easy prey for what was before her, and her husband, meanwhile, was trying to solve his legal problems without knowing how, leaving his wife unprotected. The solution was very easy. He just had to negotiate with Hamish for help, and that was it. The demon came in the form of Ida to burn the amulet, but he couldn't do it physically, so he tricked Claire into doing it, and she was easy prey and did it. With the cremation, she would release the demon that the body kept sealed within her. After burning the amulet in the body, Abazu was free and ready to unleash his darkest power. Claire fled Abazu and tried to call Artur, but her phone was snatched. She intended to hide from Ida, but she found her. When Artur entered his house, he found Sarah there. She gave Arthur two choices: either he could offer the demon a child's life to save Claire and their baby, or he would lose them forever. So, already at rock bottom, Arthur called Hamish for help with his situation. Hamish, realizing it was the work of a demon, calls Chaim for help. Chaim explained that Yasil had trapped the demon in her body and the amulet, and now that the body and amulet were destroyed, Abazu was free. She is looking for desperate people who will agree to feed her, and they must stop her before things get out of hand. He decided to complete what Yasil had str-toured. Abazu's goal is always to put a child in the sigil to feed on it, and by using the amulet, they would bind the demon to it and recite prayers to force it to stay inside. Arturo had to commit suicide to trap the demon within him. To complete the binding ritual, he had to stand inside the sigil and create a protective circle with the ashes of Yasil's body. He would call upon the demon while wearing the amulet, and when the demon entered his body, he would commit suicide. The demon soon entered the room and killed Chaim. Arturo and Hamish stayed to finish the ritual and save Claire and the baby. As Arturo and Hamish worked on finishing the protective circle, the demon wrestled with Hamish and seemingly killed him. Archer was left alone to complete the ritual. As Archer read the prayer, the demon began to play with his mind. He saw Claire, and the demon dragged her into a room and closed the door. He couldn't stay inside the circle after hearing his wife scream for her life. And despite Chaim being very clear in telling them that once inside the circle they weren't to leave and to not believe anything they saw or heard, Arturo left the circle and entered the room to help his wife. Claire was hanging from a wall, and he tried to reach her to save her but failed. He continued reading prayers, and the demon entered his body. He felt like killing himself with the dagger but struggled to do so. But then Hamish appeared and helped him push the dagger into his chest. Arturo soon realized, already daggered, that it wasn't Hamish who had helped him, but the demon. He had broken out of the sigil and dropped the amulet while trying to save Claire. Thus, the ritual was incomplete. The demon managed to kill Arturo in the process. When Claire awoke, she realized she was sitting under the table, and everything felt like a dream. She bravely crawled out from under the table. Everything in the house remained in perfect order, and she began to accept that it was an elaborate dream. She saw Arturo come through the door and was relieved to know he was alive and well. Arturo, in a demonic voice, asked her if the baby was okay. He looked underneath and realized he was inside the sigil. Arturo turned into Abazu and fed on Claire and her baby. Yasil had fallen into Abazu's trap, believing she would bring his wife back. After mistakenly feeding Sarah, he decided to give up his quest. He trapped Abazu by offering his body and killing himself the moment he was possessed. Abazu began playing mind games from the moment she was arterially freed when the amulet shattered into pieces. By burning the amulet, Abazu was completely free. He offered Arturo a choice: feed his other child or save his baby and lose his unborn child forever. Arturo attempted to trap Abazu instead, but was unsuccessful and lost his life in the process. By playing with Claire's mind, Abazu brought her inside the sigil and granted her wish in the end. As no one was able to catch Abazu, the offering ends with the belief that he continues to wander the mortal world, seeking children, to make them his food. Comments. What I really liked about this film was the portrayal of this demon. It's incredible. The bad thing is the protagonist, who is very, very inept, excessively so, and the decision to carry this character to the end of the story. It would have been better to continue the story with someone else. The atrocious thing was Yasil's murder of a girl, which wasn't seen but is implied. He kidnapped her and sacrificed her out of stupidity. The good thing is the performances of Saul and Hamish. At first, Hamish is disliked, but later you realize why he is that way. The filler character, Chaim, is good. He has a very concrete and concise participation. Although he didn't last long in the fight, his contribution was monumental. It's a shame that the person who was left with the responsibility was someone who never knew how to do things right. Evil triumphs, and I don't know what you thought. I look forward to your comments. Bye.